Tennessee basketball is headed back to the Elite Eight for the second straight season. The first time in history the school has pulled that off, and the first time Rick Barnes ever did that in his career. He has made multiple Sweet 16s, but back-to-back Elite Eights have not happened. It is just constant history making for Tennessee basketball under Rick Barnes. They hit the 30-win mark for just the third time in school history, as well as the last time they did that was 2019, also under Rick Barnes. The 3 years that they've ever hit the 30-win mark in school history happen to be the only 3 years they've ever reached number one in the rankings, which they did for 5 weeks earlier this year. They also did it by beating the Kentucky Wildcats 78-65, really controlling the game from tip. I mean, this game was completely in hand. Tennessee absolutely dominated them. It was almost impossible to see how Tennessee lost to Kentucky twice in the regular season when you watch this game. But the real point of this is that we're going to lead with this. Tennessee just got its biggest win in basketball history. Not even close. There is not a close second, guys. Tennessee has never advanced further than the Elite Eight, so they've never won in any tournament later than the Sweet 16. So if you're just going to go based on that, you have to compare this to the other two Sweet 16 wins, which were 2010 against Ohio State, when Ohio State was the 2 seed. Tennessee was the 6 seed. Tennessee got the upset to get to their first ever Elite Eight. That was the most thrilling win of the three. And then there was obviously last year when they beat Creighton to reach the Elite Eight from the Sweet 16. But this time they beat their arch rival, the team they hate the most, the team everybody in the SEC hates the most, but Tennessee in particular, because they played Kentucky more than anybody else. And Tennessee, having played Kentucky more than anybody else, managed to get the win over the hated Wildcats to reach the Elite Eight. By the way, doing it in Indianapolis, which is a lot closer to Lexington, so the crowd was about 60-40 Kentucky, and also doing it against a team, a Wildcat team, that had swept them this year. Let's be honest, guys. No matter how much you believe in this Tennessee basketball team and Rick Barnes and everything they've done, you just saw the writing on the wall, right? Tennessee flames out in the tournament. Kentucky, no matter what, unless John Calipari is coaching against Rick Barnes, historically, Kentucky, for some reason, has Tennessee's number. Heck, even during the Billy Gillispie years, Billy Gillispie went 3-1 against Bruce Pearl in 2 years. It just seemed like Kentucky always had Tennessee's number, the way Tennessee did Kentucky's number in football. Again, the only exception being when John Calipari was at Kentucky and Rick Barnes was at Tennessee. So you just felt that the writing was on the wall for Tennessee to find a way to lose this game, and they didn't do it. They completely controlled this game. I mean, it was 78-65, and it really wasn't even that close. Guys, look, Kentucky shot 6 of 15 from 3. Tennessee was 5 of 19. Now, that disparity isn't gigantic. It's nowhere near as gigantic as it was in the 2 games they played in the regular season. But if you're 40% as Kentucky from 3 and you're 26.3% as Tennessee from 3, that's not a disparity you really want. Chaz Lanier was not hitting from outside in this game. He was 1 of 6, still found ways to score. We'll get to that in a second. But most importantly, Tennessee still continued to find ways to win. They continued to do what they do under Rick Barnes. And major props to them. And guys, here's the stat. This is the stat of the weekend for you. Tennessee did not trail Kentucky, except for when Kentucky led 3-2 at one moment with at just over 2 minutes into the game. Except right after that, on the very next possession, Felix Okpara got 2 offensive rebounds and closed it with a putback to put the Vols up 4-3. Kentucky then tied it at 4 with 17 minutes to go on a free throw. And then with 16:48 to go, Zakai Ziegler hit an and one, made a jumper, got fouled, hit the free throw, put Tennessee up 7-4 with 16:48 to go. Tennessee led the rest of the way. Kentucky never, ever even tied it up at that point. Not only did, as a matter of fact, that was part of a 7-0 run as Tennessee went up 10-4, but not only did Kentucky never, ever tie it up, Tennessee went up by 10 with just under 9 minutes to go after Chaz Lanier hit a layup assisted by Zakai Ziegler to go up 25-15. Again, an and one. Chaz Lanier hit his free throw to put them up 26-15. Chaz Lanier, that free throw, that layup to put them up by double digits, secured Tennessee in the lead by double digits for good the rest of the game. Kentucky never got within double digits after that. Tennessee pulled the lead to as much as 19 points in the first half. And every time Kentucky would make a mini run in the second half, which they did, they kept fighting, Tennessee always had an answer. In the defining moment of the game, they talked about this on the broadcast, but we got to talk about it here. As Kentucky kept showing they wouldn't go away, Chaz Lanier makes a layup with just over 9 minutes to go to put Tennessee up 60-45. Lamont Butler hits a three to make it 60-48. Chaz Lanier misses a jumper on the other end with just under 9 minutes to go. It's 60-48. You think Kentucky might actually get a board here, go back the other way, hit a bucket, make this interesting? But Felix Okpara gets an offensive rebound with it 60-48. He puts the shot back in to make it 62-48. And then immediately Chaz Lanier gets a steal, and immediately Zakai Ziegler makes a three. The Okpara 2-point tip shot and the Zakai Ziegler three happened within 5 seconds, guys. Tennessee scored 5 points in 5 seconds to go from 60-48 to 65-48. That game was never in doubt after that. Game was never in doubt. Tennessee had complete control. And there are a lot of things that go into this game. First off, I want to point this out. The story of the game is not the three-point shooting. The story of the game is somewhat the defense, you're right, but that's not the biggest story of the game, actually. The biggest story of the game is the rebounding. The player of the game truly is Felix Okpara. We're going to talk about Zakai Ziegler, who deserves all of his flowers, but Okpara had 7 offensive rebounds. He had 11 boards on the night, 7 offensive boards. I just mentioned 3 of them immediately. He had 8 points, 7 boards, and a block. Okpara was amazing under the basket. By the way, he was also 4 or 5. Probably could have scored more too, including an alley that he got from Lanier. I think it was in the first half. He was absolutely incredible in this game. Tennessee out-rebounded Kentucky 34-24. They had 14 offensive rebounds to Kentucky 7. That was the difference in the game. That wasn't like the sole difference, but that's the thing that kept Tennessee in control the whole game. They were getting a lot of offensive rebounds. And, the funny thing is people kept asking why Mark Pope wouldn't try to stick in that zone that he wanted to stick in a little bit more. Well, guys, that was why. Kentucky couldn't rebound to save their lives. What do you think was going to happen if he went to a zone? As a matter of fact, he went to a zone twice, and both times Tennessee got an offensive rebound. I mean, there was nothing he was going to be able to do. He was going to have to hope to beat Tennessee straight up man-to-man, and he wasn't going to be able to do it. And the truth was Tennessee just kept driving to the basket. Basically, they made the calculation, which they didn't make in the regular season, to their credit, that Kentucky can't guard them in the paint. They can't guard them from 2. So, yes, they only went 5-19 from 3, but they kept attacking the basket, and that was the difference. That's why Zakai Ziegler, who had quite a few ISO plays, finished with 18 points and 10 assists, a double-double. If you don't want to say Okpara is the player of the game, fine. Zakai Ziegler is. 18 points, 10 assists. He was absolutely incredible on the night. 6 of 7 on free throws, 2 of 6 from 3. Zakai Ziegler had multiple ISO plays, by the way, at the top of the key and just dared somebody to stop him. He was incredible on that. Lanier, 1 of 6 from 3, but inside the 3-point arc, he was 6 of 9, and he finished the game with 17 points because he never stopped being aggressive. The same with Jordan Gainey off the bench. Only 1 of 4 from 3, but was 6 of 12 from the field, 5 of 8 on 2-point plays, had 16 points. Tennessee kept attacking the basket, and that's how they were able to get this win. And yes, they did hold Kentucky to 65 points, but honestly, as good as their defense was, and their defense was good, and their defense deserves a lot of credit. It wasn't anything we haven't seen from this defense, to be fair. I will say maybe the 2-point defense was pretty impressive. I mean, forcing Kentucky to go 19 of 46 on 2-point plays was pretty impressive. But I think mostly Tennessee controlled the tempo with their rebounding and finding other ways to score. They dropped 78 points on Kentucky. Now, again, I say that Kentucky's offense is superb, but if you defend the 3 well, then that goes out the window. The only player that kept Kentucky in it was Lamont Butler, who had 18 points and was 4 or 5 from 3. I know a lot of people on here want to dunk on Lamont Butler for saying we're battle tested and we're going to win. To be fair, Lamont Butler was the one player who actually did his best to try to win this game for Kentucky. He fought his guts out. There was just not a lot of help. Tennessee did an incredible job switching off screens. You really can't screen this team, as we've been saying all year. Their defense they had a hand in the face every single time, and Rick Barnes mixed it up. He threw in the press every now and then. He went small. I mean, major props to Rick Barnes for the way he coached this game. Darlington Dubar registering 13 minutes was a big help. It was just an incredible coaching performance all the way around. I want to go to the message board real quick. We talk about a lot of people saying great night, folks. William Robinson, Tennessee's defense was outstanding. Yes, unsung Okpara was a big factor tonight with his rebounding. Absolutely the case. And William Robinson again talking about the rebounds. Carl Knight, love you, Carl. That's right. Please hit that like and subscribe button. People, come on, show up, show some love. Historic night for Tennessee basketball as they are reaching the Elite Eight for the second time, for the second straight year, and only the third time in school history. General Ursus has a great point. You come in and you say, I've been a huge critic of Chaz, but he stepped up greatly since the tournament has started. Chaz took control at times throughout the game. You're right. Now, there was one play that made Rick Barnes very upset, and it was when Chaz Lanier had an unforced turnover in the first half. And it was really funny. Rick Barnes got interviewed right after that and was very angry about the turnover. And Steve Lapis, the commentator, even laughed about the fact that it was only the second turnover of the night for Tennessee, and it wasn't a bad turnover for Chaz. But General Ursus, you're right. He was very mature in this game, and he's really been able to take over each game. His shot was not falling in this one. He couldn't buy a bucket early, and he still managed 17 points because he found different ways to score. That's what you want out of the go-to player, okay? So Tennessee, I mean, guys, I want to go to the message board too. Where does this rank for you on Tennessee's biggest wins of all time? That's going to be the poll question real quick. Is Tennessee's, I'm going to set it up right now. Is Tennessee's Sweet 16 win over Kentucky the Vols' biggest victory in school history? Yes or no? You guys vote. I don't think it's close. I think absolutely yes. This is the biggest win in school history. Tennessee absolutely balled out in this game, and Tennessee matched the furthest they've ever gone in the NCAA tournament with this win. They hit the 30-win mark with this win on the year, and they managed to do it against the team they hate the most, Kentucky, a hardcore SEC rival. There's no way you can look at those things and say, man, Tennessee, this was not one of the biggest wins in school history. It absolutely was. It absolutely was. This was incredibly impressive by Tennessee. You know, it was just an incredible performance all the way around. Chad Morris points out, Zakai said it best. They played Tennessee basketball tonight. Yeah, no, they did. They did play Tennessee basketball tonight. Now, of course, this is Tennessee's biggest win. We have to point it out, Chad, as you point out. If Tennessee beats Purdue or Houston on Sunday, then that game will be Tennessee's biggest win in school history, because that game will be the furthest they've ever gone. That'll be their first win to reach the Final Four. But to this point, it is easily, far and away, the biggest win in school history. I don't even really think it's close, honestly. You know, when you really look at what Tennessee has been able to do in the past, I mean, I don't know if you can really look at this and say that this is not the biggest win in school history. The basketball program has not done much throughout history, guys. Let's just call it what it is. They haven't. You can maybe say, like, I don't know, the Memphis game. You can maybe say that if you wanted to. But I got to be honest, the 2008 Memphis game, that is. But I got to be honest, I look at this and I say there's no question that it's the biggest win in Tennessee basketball history because of who it was against, the historical nature of it, and where they go from there. So Will Warbird says Tennessee will make the Final Four, bank on it. Well, you may not be wrong. I mean, and look, it looks like a lot of people are agreeing with us. Just for the record, 20 votes in, 80% say yes, this is Tennessee basketball's biggest win in school history. This was incredible. And the crazy part was, so was it some thrilling win where, you know, they get a great shot at the end or whatever? So where they just controlled the game, controlled the tempo, start to finish, almost like another business trip. I mean, it was really, really impressive. I'll say this. I think this is solidified, and we'll talk about this later. This is solidified. Rick Barnes is the best coach in Tennessee basketball history. I don't really think anybody's close second. Everything he's accomplished at Tennessee, nobody, I mean, he's got an SEC regular season title outright, an SEC tournament title, 2 Elite 8 appearances, 4 Sweet 16 appearances, a 31 season, 2 31 seasons, 2 seasons ranked number 1 in the nation for a period of time. Tennessee's entire history before Rick Barnes had 1 31 season and 1 season ranked number 1 in the nation. That happened in 2007, 2008. Ironically, by the way, the 3 years that Tennessee has ever been ranked number 1 happen to be the only 3 seasons Tennessee's ever hit the 30-win mark. Also, when you look at Zakai Ziegler and Jemai Meshack, the 2 most accomplished team Vols in Tennessee basketball history. Not even close. Zakai Ziegler and Jemai Meshack now have won the SEC tournament title, the SEC regular season title, reached an Elite 8, hit number 1, and hit the 30-win mark. No, different Tennessee players have done a variation of those things one time. Nobody has done all of those things at Tennessee, except for Ziegler and Meshack. With that in mind, Ziegler, Meshack, and Wayne Chisholm are the only ones who have done all of those things. But Ziegler and Meshack made multiple Elite Eights. Wayne Chisholm only made it one time. And by the way, I retract my statement again. Chisholm didn't win an SEC tournament title. So yeah, Ziegler and Meshack are the most accomplished team Vols in the history of the program. Going back to the message board real quick. Chad Moore said it was a huge test for this team, and it seems to me that they are plating for something more this go around the way they want to win it all for Coach Barnes. I agree with you, Chaz. That was a great point. Jemai Meshack wasn't lying. They're playing hard for Coach Barnes. They're playing hard for Rick Barnes. They love him. You can see it. I don't think there's two players that more exemplify what Rick Barnes is about in college basketball than Meshack and Ziegler. I want to go to Owen because people are talking about this, saying Milicic is so hard to watch. And yes, Milicic has not been Milicic in the NCAA tournament. To his credit, he did have 8 points tonight and 4 rebounds, but he had 4 turnovers, and I have been very critical. I have to point this out about Milicic, though, and I think people are forgetting this. Milicic he is not playing in the system that he committed to Tennessee to play in. Remember, Tennessee was supposed to have JP Estrella be on here, and Estrella was what they're asking Cade Phillips to do right now. Cade Phillips is just not ready for it. That was going to create more of a force for Tennessee under the basket where Milicic could truly be a stretch four. Okpero was the scrapper. Estrella was going to be an offensive force, and Milicic would be able to be the stretch four. They had to kind of play less spacing because of Estrella going down, even though Estrella's a big guy. They had to play less spacing with their guards around the perimeter at that point and attack the basket more. That's not really Milicic's game, and it's hurt him a lot. He's still trying to find ways to be effective. He had some bad moments in this one, though. This was his worst outing, but guys, I do think that you do have to have him out on the court when you can. But look, they found other ways to get it done. Rick Barnes did go small with Jordan Gainey in there most of the time, and it worked. By the way, I got to point this out because I'm talking about Jemai Meshack. We're forgetting about Meshack. Ziegler had 10 assists. Felix Okpera had 11 steals. Meshack had 11 rebounds, Meshack had 5 steals. 5 steals. This was a vintage Rick Barnes game. And everybody's like, oh, Rick Barnes is old school. He plays a certain type of defense and he likes defense. No, that's not necessarily how it is. But this year it is. This is exactly what Rick Barnes is about. And man, if he's not living up to that in every way, shape, and form possible. It's really incredible. So General Ursus, when asking if it's Tennessee's biggest win ever, Ursus says, I guess you could say it is, but for me, it's about what you do with it. The 2001 football team got a huge win over Florida and choked against LSU. General Ursus, you are right about that game. However, that Florida win, I don't think people are going to accuse it of being the biggest win in Tennessee football history. They do have a national championship win that goes with that. And if they lose in the Elite Eight to Houston, I wouldn't necessarily consider that on par with when they lost to LSU in 2001. They were a significantly better team than that LSU team. That was just absolutely ridiculous. Unsung said, who is a better matchup for us, Purdue or Houston? Unsung, that's actually a great question. I said at the start of the tournament that Tennessee would rather face Houston than Purdue, even though Houston's the 1 seed. I did say that at the start of the tournament. I'm not backing off that. One, because Purdue is a tougher matchup. Purdue's actually beaten Tennessee twice in the NCAA tournament before this year. Last year was one with a chance to reach the Final Four. But the other part of that is the game is in Indianapolis. I think Purdue will have more fans there. That's kind of underrated, particularly at Lucas Oil Stadium. But I'll add that because of the tempo that Purdue and Houston run, I think they're a great matchup for Tennessee. Look, I told you guys this at the start of the NCAA tournament. I said the Sweet 16 was Tennessee's only obstacle to the Final Four. I'm sticking with it. I think Tennessee's going to the Final Four. What I said was, if you looked at Tennessee's season, they haven't lost to anybody outside of the top 150 in possessions per game or in adjusted tempo ratings per Ken Pom. The only teams they lost to outside of the top 100 were Ole Miss and Auburn. By the way, Ole Miss just missed out on the Elite Eight. They lost to Michigan State. Auburn is a 1 seed in the tournament. Could have been the number 1 overall seed. Both of those losses were on the road at Ole Miss and at Auburn, and they were both at the buzzer off last-second shots. Okay, so against slow-tempo teams, while Tennessee is one of them, they thrive against teams that are also slow-tempo. Okay, they should be able to handle Houston or Purdue, but I think they would rather play Houston, believe it or not, even though they're the higher seed, because I think they'll have home court advantage, and I think Houston is not that deep. So that's the interesting part about that. Will Warbird says, so happy for Rick Barnes. He deserves it. Yet Buck Fleming says, can't wait for an all SEC Final Four. Buck, you do not want an all SEC Final Four if you are a Tennessee fan. You want Florida out of that tournament as quickly as possible. I don't know if they will get out of that tournament. They look like the best team in the nation, pretty convincingly so. But Florida's a bad matchup with that. Ronnie Jenkins, I wonder what Butler is thinking about his guarantee now. Ronnie, you're all right. Lamont Butler probably shouldn't have said that, but I don't know if it would have made a difference. And the only reason I'll say that is Lamont Butler did ball out. He showed up and did his job. This wasn't like Jalen Tabor for Florida back in 2016 in football, talking a lot of trash, saying we're going to own Tennessee, and that other guy saying Ducks don't pull trucks, and then Tennessee dropping 35 points in the second half, and Juwan Jennings cooking Jalen Tabor, okay? Lamont Butler showed up. He did what he was supposed to do. The rest of the guys didn't do what they were supposed to do. Oliver Pucelia, is that how you pronounce your last name? Oliver, I apologize. I wish I could get it right, but says that Gainey scoring is so valuable when teams try to take Lanier out the game. You're right about that. Jordan Gainey is basically Chaz Lanier off the bench. He's an incredible player. General Ursus says if Tennessee manages to make the Final Four, I believe they're going to get Duke. That would be living the dream to knock off Duke, Kentucky, and UCLA to reach the Natty. I never even thought about that, but you're right. That'd be incredible, honestly. Tennessee knocking off Blue Bloods like that would be really, really impressive. Chad Morris says, I'm just so pumped that we aren't here talking about what went wrong in this game. Vols win big time game. Rest up, get ready for Purdue or Houston. Yeah, that is true. That's typical history of Tennessee in the NCAA tournament. You know, we talk about what went wrong dating back to 2000 with the North Carolina game. And I think a lot of people are saying John Barnett on here. John, I didn't mean to. I almost blocked you by accident. I hit the wrong thing, but I'm glad I didn't. Says it would be nice to get some get back with Purdue. You're right. Tennessee owes Purdue. They've lost to Purdue twice in the NCAA tournament since 2019 with two of their best teams. The two best teams they've had outside of this one. One of those losses was off a terrible call on a 3-point shot. They do want that revenge. And Steve tweet, I agree, John, payback with Purdue would be sweet. John Major says Rick Barnes for governor. Well, John, you know, if your namesake was still alive, I would support Johnny Majors for governor, but unfortunately, he is no longer with us. But Rick Barnes for governor, look, I think Rick Barnes is one of the highest character guys in the history of college basketball coaching, and I don't know how anybody could not be a fan of his, given what he's done. Going back to the poll question real quick, we're at 50 votes. Is Tennessee Sweet 16 win over Kentucky the basketball Vols' biggest victory in school history? 80% say yes, 20% say no, so 40 out of 50 say yes. I will be back with you guys on Sunday. I'm broadcasting to you live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio. The show represented by Banks & Jones. Banks & Jones, play to win, banksandjones.com. Why settle? Banks & Jones. Again, live to you from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio. We're going to have a lot more content to write about going through the night into the morning, and then we will be back at it covering Tennessee's Elite Eight matchup with either Houston or Purdue, with their chance to get to their first ever Final Four. I know everybody's excited about that. So Tennessee beats Kentucky to reach the Elite Eight for the second straight year, the first time they've ever done that in school history, the first time Rick Barnes has ever done that in his history as a coach. And they are now, that is their biggest win in school history. They are now going for an even bigger win in 2 days. Again, we will be back on Sunday to recap what happens in Tennessee's Elite Eight matchup, win or lose. Please hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on, tell a friend. We're building something amazing here at Off the Hook Sports. We want you guys to be a part of it. Thanks again for tuning in with Caleb Calhoun. This has been a special recap on Off the Hook Sports. Again, we will be back